From Washington, this is VOA News. I'm David Byrd reporting. Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula has claimed responsibility for last week's deadly attack on a French satirical magazine. The U.S. State Department says a video released by the terror group Wednesday is authentic. Spokesperson Marie Harf said that Washington is working to find out how the group, known as AQAP, is connected to the attacks on the Charlie Hebdo magazine that left 12 people dead.
My daughter is
Meanwhile, France announced plans to send its flagship aircraft carrier, the Charles de Gaulle, to the Middle East to fight Islamic State militants. French President François Hollande said that France is at war with them, so we must use military means that are best suited to face those threats. The first edition of Charlie Hebdo to hit newsstands since the magazine's staff was massacred last week briskly sold out in France Wednesday. In Paris, people lined up and bought the publication, whose offices were the main target of the terrorist attacks. Several Muslim clerics, including the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, were critical of the magazine's latest issue, which depicts the Muslim prophet Muhammad on its cover. Here in Washington, federal agents announced they have arrested an Ohio man for allegedly plotting to set off bombs at the U.S. Capitol and shoot employees in and around the building. Christopher Cornell was arrested Wednesday, moments after buying a weapon at a Cincinnati gun store. According to court documents, Cornell allegedly told an FBI informant that he was planning to go to Washington, scope out government buildings for security measures, and set off pipe bombs outside the U.S. Capitol. This is VOA News. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is in Bulgaria after a late-night meeting with Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif in Switzerland. As VOA's State Department correspondent Pam Dawkins reports from Geneva, the meeting came just before Iran, the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, and Germany are to resume their nuclear negotiations next week.
Before the start of his meeting with Secretary of State Kerry, Foreign Minister Zarif smiled broadly and took questions from reporters. When asked about the Iran nuclear talks, he said the meetings in Geneva were important. Kerry did not comment to reporters, but earlier this week in India, he said he hoped to accelerate the process to make greater progress. Iran and the so-called P5+1 negotiators are trying to reach an agreement that addresses Western concerns that Iran is trying to make nuclear weapons and give Iran relief from international sanctions. Pam Dawkins, VOA News, Geneva.
Indonesia's National Search and Rescue Agency says divers will try to reach the main section of an Air Asia wreckage where most of the bodies are believed to be located. Agency Chief Henry Bangbang Celestio says the fuselage was found in the Java Sea, about 3 kilometers from the tail section and about 800 meters from where the so-called black box recorders were found earlier. The Airbus jet crashed December 28th with 162 people on board. So far, 50 bodies have been recovered. The U.S. Space Agency says that no one is in danger following an alarm at the International Space Station that prompted astronauts to evacuate the U.S. section and move to the Russian side. NASA said the 6-person space station crew is safe and in good shape inside the Russian module. Mike Suffredini is the NASA station program manager.
While it's inconvenient for the crew to be in the Russian segment, it's certainly not unhealthy for them. And so we'll do due diligence to make sure we're comfortable with the environment before we send them in there.
The alarm was related to a possible ammonia leak, but a NASA official described it as a false indication, saying there was no hard data to confirm a leak. And U.S. retail sales declined in December, which worried investors and drove down stock prices on Wednesday. The Commerce Department says that retail sales fell 0.9% for the month. Economists watch retail sales closely because consumer demand drives the U.S. economic activity. Those reports sent stocks tumbling on Wall Street, with the Dow Jones Industrial Index dropping more than 1%. The S&P 500 and the NASDAQ were also lower. For more on these stories, please visit our website, voanews.com. I'm David Byrd in Washington.
That's the latest world news from VOA.